familiar guy. He's been around for a long time. He's doing great work. And please welcome Congressman Darrell Issa.
What I want to talk to you about today is just one issue. And that's the issue of how do we get our border back? Now, next week, we're going to move the bill, in all likelihood, actually to a vote for impeachment of Mayorkas. It's coming out of committee now with actual impeachable offenses. We had scholars like Jonathan Turley and others work with us on the difficult task of having impeachable offenses. This president is not guilty of treason, because treason would require that he work with some foreign government specifically. We can't quite prove that. Treason is not when you don't enforce the laws or when you have policies that are inconsistent with the laws. And yet we need a word. Well, fortunately with Mayorkas, we have the word perjury. He said the border was sealed, it was closed. He said it in front of committees. Now the president said, no, it's never been sealed. It's been open for 10 years, which, by the way, was when he was vice president under Obama. So we're going to go through a process of educating the American people who already know wrong, but educating them. Now, you've also probably heard about the, quote, deal the Senate's trying to do. Let me explain to you, I'm not doing the deal. Doing a deal with this president is really like after you've been assaulted, somebody says, you know, now let's be friends. This president and his cabinet have deliberately opened our borders, have deliberately brought in 8+ million people here illegally, given them paroles, given them tickets to fly all over. And now what they want to do is have a deal on how they will enforce if we give them things they want. Of course, I'll give them support for Israel. There are things that I'm thoroughly willing to vote for. What I'm not willing to do is reward them for maliciously reversing the Trump enforcements that were working. Maliciously stopping the census from even counting illegals or non-citizens. Most people don't know why they did it. I'm going to tell you here today why they did it and why our republic is at stake in a way that it hasn't been probably since the Civil War. If we do not stop them, not just stop the inflow, but actually remove these 8 million people, if we do not change by 2030, here's why they did it, and here's what they're going to get for it. How many of you know how the census work? More or less. Right? You count people. President Trump and his Commerce Secretary, I work very closely with, Wilbur Ross, wanted to ask a question that used to be asked that isn't being asked. Are you a citizen? Not are you legal or illegal, but are you a citizen? And then the intention was, if you're not a citizen, they would take you out of the census for purposes of congressional districts. For purposes, obviously, the same would affect Assembly and Senate districts all throughout the country. Because the reality is, if you're not a resident, if you're not a citizen, if you don't have a green card and you're not in the process, somewhere along that line, you shouldn't be counted for purposes of how you break up America. This administration has figured it out. The last administration figured it out and tried to fix it. If we do not remove those people or change the census so that they are counted and take it out of the census, here's what they're going to do. Imagine you have 10 million people who are here. Let's assume for a moment they never vote, but they are counted in the census. You take 200,000 or 300,000, you draw them into downtown San Diego. You take 200,000 a couple of 3 times and you draw them into parts of LA. You do this in Chicago, you do this in New York, you do it around the country, because those new people coming in, they're living in the poorer areas of Miami. They're living in the poor areas of town after town after town. So they can be drawn into Democrat districts. Now, they don't have to vote. They just have to allow them to draw more Democrat districts. 10 million people represent as many as 40 districts if they're drawn right. Can you imagine us trying? We have a 4-seat majority today. If they draw as many as 40, even if they draw 10 or 15 Democrat districts, they have systematically eliminated our ability to be in the majority as Republicans in the House. At the same time, in most of the states where they draw it, they will change who runs the legislature, and in every state except Nebraska, there'll be the House and the Senate. That is their goal, that's what they're trying to do, and that's the reason there can't be a compromise. As we're impeaching Mayorkas, we will be making the point to the American people every day through the election, and after President Trump is reelected again, we will in fact be doing the next step, which is using the power we will have to change the census law, to undo it. And oh, by the way, how much more time do I have?
You got about 4 minutes.
I got about 4 minutes. Well, here's the other thing. Piece of history. They say you can't get these people out. There was a general, a 5-star general who became president, Dwight David Eisenhower. And in the 1950s, he did exactly that. He mobilized the military for purposes of removal.
Yeah.
People say you can't do it. Well, he did it, and the Supreme Court didn't disagree. Imagine President Trump on January 20th, a little after noon, because he will probably make a pretty good acceptance speech at his inaugural. He sits down and he writes an executive order, and it says to the Department of Defense, I want 50,000 military officers. I want the made Article 1 judges to evaluate these people who falsely claimed they were coming here because they had credible fear. 95% of those people, if they show up, will be adjudicated not to have credible fear, and they will be ordered for removal. That means that in a matter of weeks or a couple of months, the president will have been able to ask people to come, most of whom won't come. The ones who do come, most of them will be ordered for removal. All of them will be eligible for expedited removal. Now, the 5% or whatever that ends up having credible fear, welcome. Welcome to America. We are a place where we help people who are in fact escaping death and so on. But that is such a small part of it that we will take our borders back. And by the way, if President Trump continues the same procedure and our Border Patrol and our ICE agents begin doing the kind of work they can do to remove people by the tens or hundreds of thousands that are also mixed in there that don't even have parole. Because remember, every month there's a statistic you hear, it's 50,000 this month, it's 40,000. It's over 500,000 a year of getaways. Those people are here too. So understand, our job is to communicate to the American people using impeachment and other techniques, get the word out. And I'm going to close very simply this way on this one note. We need your help because the American people have never been more aware. For the first time in modern polling history, the number one issue is not the economy, stupid. It's in fact the border. For the first time in my lifetime, virtually every big city Democrat mayor is saying, we gotta do something about the border. It's terrible. You should see what it's doing to my city, my sanctuary city. This is the time to communicate this. And Paula, I appreciate your being here because this is also a time for party to come together. I've had enough of listening to people talk about why our party is bad. We have to focus on why this president has done something that a layperson would call treason. The scholars say you can't call it treason, but it's clear that they had a reason to do something that was not within the law, not within the intent, and not good for America, not even good for big city Democrat mayors. That's the message we've got to send, and I look forward to sending it through March 5th, and then all the way through November. I have the honor of being somebody who's going to be up on the podium when President Trump gets sworn in for his third term. Thank you, and God bless.
Nikki Haley, calls Donald Trump unhinged. He's just lost an $83 million defamation judgment. He's been quoted as saying he wants to be a dictator on day one only. How do you tell people who are worried about the authoritarian perceptions of Donald Trump that he will be a fair president for the entire country, that he won't be vindictive, that he won't use the DOJ against his enemies? How do
I say President Trump will lead and accomplish some great things? Because he had 4 years of doing it. I've endorsed President Trump. I've been with Nikki Haley. I stood on the podium with her when she was governor. I think she's a great lady. But just like George H.W. Bush, who called Ronald Reagan voodoo economics, what is said in the primary is not necessarily true, nor should it be anything that stops people coming back together. President Trump is going to be our nominee. President Trump is going to be our next president, and it's our job to make him successful. Of course, we want to make sure DOJ does its job, and that's one of the things that he's going to, on day one, look at. Quite frankly, Department of Justice continued doing things that were wrong during his last administration. They continued basically working for Obama. He's going to have to pick an attorney general that's going to really dig in and do a lot more than Sessions or Barr did. So I appreciate that, but right now the Department of Injustice is in fact not punishing Hunter Biden, and overdoing it and charging people, including. They just Peter Navarro. He just got sentenced for objecting on presidential grounds to being deposed, and it's only a one-way street. So I want a Department of Justice that works for all of us. It doesn't right now, and I know the president wants the same thing, and I'll help him pick an attorney general that will do that.
Would you consider a position in the Trump administration if he were elected?
I've already had one. I worked for 2 years for the Trump administration. I think the most valuable thing I can do, and what I plan to do, is continue representing my people here in California. We're underrepresented by Republicans, and helping President Trump be successful. We're going to need to push the Senate. I think we're going to get a majority, but we're going to need to push hard against the Senate. So
but if Donald Trump were to ask you to be a cabinet or sub-cabinet level,
I'm not answering any hypotheticals.
Okay.
Because look, I didn't plan on being in the Trump administration when he asked me the first time. Yes,
okay.
Ma'am.
I mean, up till now, there's been a vote every 4 years. I've heard from a couple people we're not even going to have an election.
We're going to have an election.
You think so?
We're going to have an election. We had an election in 1860. We will have an election, and we will swear in a president. Now, they tried to kill Lincoln multiple times on his way to being sworn in. So, am I going to tell you that there's never been problems? Of course, there's been problems. The Hamilton family will tell you that things happen, but we will swear in whoever wins the next election. I will be there for the count of the Electoral College, just as I was in January 6th of 2021, and we'll get there. I think they scare a lot of people, and by the way, the left is scaring people on the left with very similar statements that Trump this and Trump that.
Are you aware that Obama has a production company, him and his wife? They produced a movie called Leave This World Behind. Have you seen it?
Nope,
Have you heard about it?
I won't give him the. Look, President
I
Obama.
didn't pay to see it.
President Obama is behind the scenes pulling the strings, and so are his people. I'm not giving him a third term or a fourth term.
No, it's about America being attacked. Okay, it's about the EMP strike, America going down, our planes crashing.
I haven't seen it.
It's very scary, and Obama produced that. I believe that's treason.
Again,
It's treasonous.
treason is a nice word we use. It has a legal meaning. So, is Obama a globalist? Yes. Is he somebody that I didn't vote for and I tried to hold accountable? Yes. Thank you.
Okay.